Welcome to Jacket Jockeys with Justin.
And I.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Did-
Hello,
Wait, did
everyone.
you? Is that grammar right? Anyway.
No.
Yeah, it
It's,
feels.
I, okay, sorry. No, do it again.
Welcome to Jacket Jockeys with Justin.
It is I.
There we go.
Okay.
Now that is correct. Well done. It is.
It
It
does
is
kind of make
me.
it sound like it is that I am Justin. But aren't we all Justin?
Sure, why not?
What are we talking about today?
So yeah, we're here. Hey, Jacket Jockeys are here to talk some Yellowjackets, build that hype train. Do you build a hype train? We're contributing. We're riding that hype train.
Somebody builds the
All right.
train. I mean, you think you didn't build that?
You didn't.
You think trains are grown on
Kids these
trees?
days, they don't even know.
Yeah, I think our listenership is really young.
Womp womp.
Yeah, so we are recording this 6 days out from the release of the first episode of season 3. Very exciting.
That is correct. Yes. Yeah.
What
So
will happen?
we did our season 1 retrospectives, 2 parts right before this, so you can check those out if you haven't already. If you're just coming back because you're like getting in Yellowjackets mode again, that's definitely what I'm doing.
Yellow fever. Yellow jacket fever. Wait, is yellow fever something bad? It's not a real thing.
I think it is a real thing.
You get it from mosquitoes?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is not, you don't get this from mosquitoes, you get it from yellow jackets.
I see.
The soccer players.
Sure. I got a fever. All right. So,
that was a really, really good Christopher Walken.
Speaking of shows we're not talking about, so we're going to I mentioned this at the end of the last one, and I know because I recently listened to it, that what we're gonna do with this one is we're gonna talk about season 2, like whatever seems interesting, whatever stood out. We watched it all the way through, and in the original run of the podcast, we covered episodes one by one, and so feel free to check those out if you want, like scene by scene breakdowns and going in real depth. What the point here is not that, for sure.
Definitely not.
So because there's a lot of stuff that happens, and so we can't begin to cover it all, but yeah, larger things that seem interesting, talk about the season as a whole. And then the other thought I had was just like lingering unanswered questions or stuff that may or may not be coming in season 3, because season 3 is upon us.
Yeah, we're gonna get to make a couple 3 predictions that will almost certainly be proven wrong right away. I didn't re-listen to the podcast, so you can look forward to me saying stuff that I said the first time around. And forgot.
I'll tell you, I listened to the season 2 finale podcast, also to help, like reorient myself, like what were we talking about? And like it was funny that like a lot of the stuff we said in that podcast, we said again.
Yeah,
when we watched it again, it was like, oh yeah, we're back to that.
Yeah.
Like the whole controversy of like, and it can't be her. Like, did that mean they can't eat Lottie, or did that mean they can't live without Lottie's leadership? And I think the two are inextricably linked. But anyway,
so we just re-argued about that, or debated about that.
We had the same debate on the podcast with the same side. We were on the same side.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah, we had the exact same reactions.
I do think I came around.
You did. I think it was the previously on that really seemed like it was framing it as we can't. Whereas
I don't like that. I don't like it though.
You don't have to like it, but like the previous, I'm ambivalent about it, but like the way they show stuff like kind of cuts together, like it's more to the point, and the way they showed it in the episode didn't really.
Yeah, well, we're not here to argue about how much stock you should put in previously ons.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, since we're talking about season 2, I just want to complain about the previously on a little bit. So
I just said, all right, go ahead.
What? Yeah, no, I want to.
I was sorry, listeners. I was trying to
just a little bit.
Okay,
just a little bit. No, so there are 2 things that I did. One thing that's kind of a mea culpa. I actually have a fair amount of mea culpas on this because I
I
think
think it's Maya's culpa.
watching it, meas culpas. Anyway, watching it again, there were like objections that I had that, when I watched it more carefully, I saw what they were going for, and it started to make sense to me, and I was like, okay, like I was able to give them more credit, and if nothing else, just alter what my criticism was. Um, anyway, the two things I wanted to complain about was the first thing was that Thaisa phone call that they just like put in the previously on multiple times but never showed in the show.
Yeah.
I just find that like
Deleted scene
fucking
that,
weird.
yeah.
And I know I complained about that in the original podcast, but when we watch it again, it was just like, really, y'all?
It's pretty odd.
It's so odd. It's like if it was that fucking important, why didn't you show it anyway? I'm sure I said the same thing back in the
I'm
day.
sure you did.
And then the other thing was the Shauna baby eating thing. Like
Yeah, this is your favorite axe to
I felt like
grind.
the previously on like portrayed it like they really did eat the baby. But like what I noticed, there was a subtlety that I didn't notice the first time, which is that they also show Ben's like hallucinatory fantasies that he's like going into in season two. It's a major thing for season two. We'll have to talk
Yeah.
about that actually a bit. But they do this little like VHS line effect when
Mm-hmm.
they cut into that,
Yeah.
and then they did the same thing when they cut into the baby eating, implying that it was a hallucinatory dream type thing, which it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Like they're very similar in a way.
I mean, I also think like they don't. Yeah, Shauna doesn't continue to act as if she thinks that they ate the baby beyond a really short period of time right after labor.
Yes.
So I think that was something that, things can kind of get built up in your mind.
Yeah.
And here I mean in one's mind, but I also mean your mind. Because
Yeah.
you complained about that
Yeah.
a lot, but
I
I
did.
actually think it plays just fine.
I'm not going to go that far, but I'm going to refine what I want to say
Yeah.
about it. And it's
Okay.
true that I don't think the show's trying to say that they really ate the baby,
Uh-huh.
but I do want to say more about it. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's my thing about
Yeah.
previously on. So,
I wanted to say something
oh, go
about
for it.
uh this you so I stumbled upon you listening to the podcast, and I heard myself in the past. I heard past self um complaining about how this this plan that Cabin Taissa comes up with to randomly select who will be eaten is really, really unstrategic, because there are people in the group who have unique skills who they'd be really screwed to not have around anymore. And that just really doesn't seem like Taissa, who's all about strategy. It just really doesn't seem like something that she would come up with. And I just am pointing it out because it didn't bother me on the rewatch, but when I heard old me complaining about this, I was like, yeah, Taissa wouldn't have done that. Taissa is very pragmatic. She should have sat them down and be like, look, you have 5 days to, like, I think we can survive another 5 days. You have 5 days to develop a unique skill that is important to the survival of this group, and if you don't, you all are the
We're going to
pool.
eat your
You
ass.
Yeah, we're gonna eat your high calorie butt meat. You, this group, are the dead weight, and
Yeah.
we're gonna eat your dead weight if you don't, you know, figure out a way to contribute.
Yeah. 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 Which is like not exactly the same, but it's at least consistent with like the way the Jackie thing played out. Like at least part like that really wasn't the whole story, but part of that story was she wasn't contributing.
Yeah, but I'm actually also, I should have clarified. I don't just mean like, because I'm not disputing that those people, I'm not saying they don't do their chores. I'm saying, or old, me in the past was saying, um, we've got only two people who can effectively hunt. And even though game hasn't been around for a while, that could still be useful.
Yeah.
No one else can do that.
Yeah.
We've got one person who is the butcher,
Yeah.
and it's not that no one else could build that skill, but it is a skill. And like, yeah, you can take out the shit bucket to the canyon, fine, but anybody can do that.
Yeah.
But, what happens if Natalie really does get killed? Then we're down to one hunter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so there was another part of that podcast that I think you didn't hear where we talked about like Shauna specifically, like that someone, I mean, we said the same thing recently as we did
Mhm.
back then, but like that the butchery job is a huge deal,
Yeah.
and she is de facto the only one who knows how to do it. And it's weird that there's no discussion whatsoever of like training an
Training anybody
apprentice, like
else.
getting
Yeah.
someone else to be able,
Yeah.
because she's in the draw.
And I don't
So,
remember. I don't remember if I noticed it the first time, but I forgot until the rewatch that she's writing in her journal in, I think, the finale about like she can't believe that she wasn't the one chosen to
mhm,
be the leader because she has this really important role. I know we want to talk about that scene in general later
I
on.
do, yeah.
But that scene, I don't remember it being so like there's a lot there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They throw some shit out there at the end where it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, and I think as far as season 3 goes, like that stuff is pretty relevant because it's right there at the end, and there's no time to develop it any further. It just introduces an idea that wasn't there before, and you're just kind of left with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I said on the podcast that I do feel like is kind of maybe true is that, you know the writers know and the viewers know that Shauna survives. And so, like, I feel
So they
like,
don't feel the need to,
yeah, like,
yeah.
even though that's not a good rationale for why they don't do it, but like maybe they see it as a waste of time because ultimately they know that Shauna's not gonna
Yeah.
get the
It's just
job.
one of those things that I think it makes the character act in a way that's out of character. And listeners to some of our other podcasts know that that's one of my pet peeves.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, it's more efficient, but I don't think that person will really behave in that way.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think that's fair. I feel like they should have at least had some lines about it, even if they don't want to spend a ton of time on it,
yeah,
because it's not going to pay off much. But,
right.
and same thing with Natalie, right? Like, we know Natalie survives, so, like, and Travis.
Yeah, and maybe
So the
they'll
hunters
revise
aren't going to
this.
die. Like,
Right, right.
you
Maybe
know?
maybe there will be some follow-up on this. I mean, we're still a long ways away from Pit Girl.
Yeah.
Um, but just kind of an overarching observation that this season was, in my opinion, much, much heavier than the first season. Just a lot of dread inducing sequences. It's winter now. There's all this stuff that I mean, the first season had a lot of adversity, but there's a lot of new stuff that they're grappling with, and it's a much heavier season. um
Yeah.
and
It was a
also,
less desperate time in the
yeah,
wilderness. And so, yeah, I think overall, like, yeah, it was heavier,
it,
definitely.
yeah, it also has some great moments of levity.
Yes.
I wrote down a few of my favorites. I invite you to share some of your
That's part of
favorites.
the DNA of the show, I think. It's
Uh,
just
yes. They are not in any particular order. I already referenced the high calorie butt meat.
yeah,
Classic
classic Misty
line.
line. Yep.
Randy in any scene
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
Randy's in.
Randy is, yeah.
Matt sniffing the condom.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. That makes me
the
think about that thing from Twin Peaks where he like tastes the shit from the sink and he's like
Yeah,
baby
baby
laxative. It's like,
laxative.
what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, it's part of FBI training to know what cocaine and baby laxative tastes like. Who shit in the pee bucket?
Oh
Obviously,
man.
it's a great one.
That's not only is that hilarious, but it's also an
Mystery.
unanswered
Mhm.
question. Will we find out in season 3?
One thing that you were really tickled by, this time we watched it was, when Misty and Walter are in the diner and they ask, about the cult leaders and the waitress says they're bad tippers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just think
Um,
that's kind of funny. It just seems incongruous.
yeah.
Like,
Um,
wait, does Lottie tell them like, yeah, don't tip anyone because like it's bad for your personal growth or something? You know, I'm just like, what's the rationale? Like,
that's
why are they bad
funny. No,
tippers?
I
Like,
assumed it's just because they don't have money.
because they don't have money. Yeah, okay.
Um,
Lottie
and
does though.
what?
Here's some money to tip your fucking server. Like, be
It's not,
decent, y'all.
look, it's not about money. I ask that
Give
you
them
all
Travis's money
look, I ask
that
that
she
you
took for no
all
reason. Speaking
wear
of shit, I have to complain about.
heliotrope because we don't want any class distinctions here. What, my Rolex? No, no, no. Um, I'm really amused by Jeff's phone call to the commune when he was like, "Oh yeah, do you remember that gentleman that you got into the fender bender with?
Yeah.
With some sad
Yeah,
news."
you wouldn't believe it, but
That's great. I love Jeff. I love Jeff and
yeah,
Shauna and all their scenes together.
yeah,
And the last one I want to mention, oh no, I have two more. There's a great shot when Kevin is interrogating Callie and she starts to cry and he passes over a
yes,
Kleenex box and then she starts to just like spool out this lie about losing her virginity to the cop friend. Kevin
yeah,
immediately realizes
yeah.
that she's lying and takes the Kleenex back away. It's perfectly acted. And then probably
Yeah.
my favorite thing, one of my favorite things I've ever seen on screen is the goldfish liberation.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that's a
So
classic. That I had forgotten about that, the goldfish plot.
don't
I
forget about the
I
goldfish
remember
plot.
that they had like an outing, and I remember they go to like her parents' house, and I remember there's some bonding there. But I forgot that detail of like she like puts the fish in her mouth
It's so great.
and spits it out in the car.
It's so great.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. I agree. Yeah, those are all good moments. Uh, since you framed it that way, like I do wanna like dig into a few details, but I will say yeah, in terms of comedy, I think you covered most of my favorite moments. I'm trying to think if there's any I missed,
There
but
are definitely
um
others.
no, 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 there were some good ones, but in terms of like what my favorite ones were or something, but I'm not gonna let him eat you, Kristen. Anyway, love that. So but I was just gonna talk about like some stuff that I thought was good. Okay, let me reframe here. Just sort of speaking overall. I've been watching a bunch of stuff about Yellow Jackets, trying to get my head in the game, as it were. And there was this one that I watched where they said that there are people who like wish that Yellow Jackets was just the teen timeline, just the wilderness stuff,
Hmm.
and not the adult part.
Okay.
And like, I do think that, so I was thinking about like in season one, I think that they're pretty on the level. Like I think both parts, like, I have my issues with both of them actually, but I think they're pretty on par. Like they both work really well. But I do think in season two, for the adult timeline, it's there is some issue I have with it, which is just that when I think about season one, it feels very dynamic. It feels like there's a lot of characters involved in a lot of different things. And like sometimes they come together and sometimes they don't, but they have their little stories. Like we got, the Adam Martin thing. Obviously, there's like a lot of intrigue and also just a lot of fun scenes involved with that plot.
Yeah.
Like some of Shauna's great moments. Um, and we had, like the campaign, the bad one, Sammy, all that stuff, like interesting. We also had Misty kidnapping Jessica Roberts, which I have my reservations about, but I think the scenes are good. I sort of came to terms with that. And then we have Natalie trying to investigate Travis's death. They go out there on a field trip, like the bank account like stuff, like all of that, was interesting too. And I feel like in season 2 it's like smaller somehow. It feels like almost everything revolves around either Lottie's camp or the Adam Martin police investigation. And like that's basically it. Like that's kind of all they got.
Yeah.
And I think like it just doesn't feel as exciting because um like the Adam Martin thing is like falling, like I get it, and I don't object that they want to do it, because in a way it's like if they didn't do it, if they just moved on and like they did a murder and covered it up and they don't even like address the consequence, like that would bother me for a different reason. So
Yeah.
but on the other hand, it's like this trap or this thing that TV gets into sometimes where like we already know everything that happens, so it's not a very interesting procedural thing for us, And I feel like we also know they're not all about to go to jail. Like that's not, you know,
Yeah.
what's the show gonna do if they all go to jail? And they're all fucking implicated. I mean, not the ones that weren't in season 1,
Right,
obviously,
right.
but like the original 4, like they all were involved in that. And so it's just like that
Yeah.
ruins the show. And so it's like it's sort of a foregone conclusion that it has to end with that investigation being, swept under the rug somehow. And that is what happens eventually. And so like I just feel like there's like tedium there that's like kind of frustrating. And then like Lottie's camp is interesting, but I'm not sure if it's like interesting enough to be the only thing,
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
have going. It's like and it feels like they're spinning their wheels sometimes, and I think like Shauna like suffers a bit from this, like the adult one at least, like doesn't
Yeah.
get as much to do as she did in season 1, which is kind of disappointing because like I mean she has good scenes in season 2, so it's not I'm not saying it's totally
Yeah.
horrible, but
I
like
definitely agree about Shauna in that regard. Yeah, and because adult Shauna is probably the best character
yeah,
on. I mean, she's just great.
yeah,
And she does have to take more of a back seat because we need scenes with Lottie and we need scenes with Van.
yeah,
Though not as many as with Lottie. I hear what you're saying. I do think there's less momentum. The second
yeah,
season, both in the
more
past
static.
and in the present, yeah, it's less propulsive for
But
sure.
I feel that I agree. There's a middle period. We'll get to it in a second with the wilderness timeline where I'm not totally happy with it, but
Yeah. I no, go ahead.
I actually love the stuff at the beginning of the season, and I love the stuff at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think.
So, overall, I feel like it is more dramatic in season 2 than the adult timeline
Yeah, I mean,
is.
all this stuff in turn, I agree the adult timeline sags a bit. Um, and yeah, the middle parts of seasons
Are
sag anyway.
always kind
But
of a lag
yeah,
period.
but I think
That was true in season 1 too.
that those things bothered me less on rewatch than the first time, in part because I
Yeah,
wasn't, when you watch
we had
something
to
for the
wait a
first
week.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
But also because I'd say like a third to a half of what happens at Lottie's camp is about character development for Natalie, knowing that they're going to end the season by killing her.
yes,
And so you want to invest that. And
definitely.
then two, because like a third to a half of it is about getting getting us back to this place that we go in the finale of Lottie. sort of tapping into the forces of the wilderness, Van falling back into that, this idea of the hunt, and you don't want to do that prematurely,
Yeah.
because otherwise it seems rushed or cheap
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of stuck on the very first thing you said, that is that there are people who wish it was just like the kid timeline. And everybody's entitled to their own taste, but I think that it's a unique thing to see a show that gives you simultaneously kind of what the fast forward 20 years of something would be.
Yeah.
What is the aftermath, like not the immediate aftermath, but the long-term repercussions of this. And obviously bigger questions about not just psychological baggage of the survivors, but is there something else going on? Is there an it?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so I just think it would be a shame. Like I understand why people would feel that way. Because I think it's natural to gravitate toward one kind of one pole of the show. But yeah, I just disagree.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I disagree on multiple levels. So like I was just acknowledging that I do think in season 2 the adult timeline it kind of loses, but the general idea, like what you're saying, like that core part of the show to me is indispensable. Like I don't think I would like the show nearly as much if it was just a wilderness survival show.
Hmm.
That's fine. I've seen Lost, I've seen Walking Dead, I've seen like that kind of thing, and it's fine, it works. I mean, hey, I no one loves Lost more than I do, but like, um uh uh I've seen it. And so the contrast to me is like part of what's interesting about the show. And fundamentally, even though, like I said, I think the adult timeline didn't live up to the teen timeline in season 2, in general, I'm actually more interested in the adult timeline because it's more open ended, because there's more possibility. Like, I have no clue what's going to happen. We all know where the teen timeline is going to end.
Well, yeah, but if
It's a foregone conclusion.
yeah, but I mean, in the show that these people are envisioning, that wouldn't be a foregone conclusion, because you wouldn't already know who survives.
Yeah, okay, okay, fair enough. But my thing is like, you know,
I agree with you. It's more
it's
distinctive.
it's a two-step process. So like, yeah, if you just do the wilderness thing, then yeah, like I mean, the whole show just changes completely,
Yeah.
and you have to fill more time with stuff. And like, yeah, what's the frame of the show? Like, it just changes completely. But I'm just saying, like, you know, if we are given to know, like the opening scene is the pit girl scene, that's planting a flag. That's saying this is where this wilderness thing is going to go eventually. And you can't, like that's not the opening of the show if it's that only that timeline, unless they're willing to say that that's where we're going. And again, that would be back to it's a foregone conclusion what's going to happen. So anyway, it's like if you'd rather it be that, like you have to acknowledge it's not even remotely the same show anymore.
Yeah.
And so like I prefer the show as it is. Like I definitely would rather have that. And like I said, ultimately, like I enjoy the wilderness stuff. It's super interesting. I've no objection to it. I don't want to get rid of it at all. But going forward, the adult part is like really, to me, like a huge driver of my interest in the narrative.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I agree. I think do I agree? I mean, I think the end of this season puts us in a strange place with both of the timelines, because it it, the um like the grown up timeline, it seems like we're hopefully done with the Adam Martin thing. It seems like
Yeah.
Walter's amazing crazy plan
Yeah.
has worked. And then
TM.
yeah, I mean, what?
TM.
TM, yeah.
Walter's amazing
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
crazy
yeah.
plan.
Sorry, I'm just like processing what you're thinking. Yeah, because in the in the past timeline, now we've burned the cabin, so they need to find a new place to live in this brutal winter. So that's gonna take up some
Yeah.
bandwidth.
Yeah.
Um, what kind of phenomena or other creatures or conditions they're gonna encounter, they being both the team and Travis and Coach on his own kind of thing in that cave system. I guess I'm just, yeah, I don't know. Like, the 2 episodes before the end of the season, I would have said absolutely 100% I agree with what you just said. But with the way that the two end, I'm kind of at a loss as to where either one is going. So I don't know which I find more intriguing
Okay. Fair
or
enough.
full of promise.
Fair enough. I'm not, it's not that I'm not interested in the wilderness thing. I mean, like specifically for season three, that's a different story. What I'm really talking about is overall.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of saying like I'm not, I don't feel, I am super excited about the show coming back, but I can't point to any because I have faith in it. Like it's always been good. The writing has always been excellent. The acting has always been excellent. But there's neither one actually seems that exciting to me in this moment.
Ah, okay.
Like, where are you going now with the adults? Like, we've just revealed this thing about Jeff having actually been the blackmailer, but then Natalie's death is going to shake everything up. Van is here, but has just done this like crazy betrayal thing by kind of lying in order to enable Lottie to execute this hunt that
Yeah.
presumably, as she assumed, would result in someone being killed.
Yeah.
I guess there's this idea, Lottie says this thing about the wilderness is pleased and will reward you or whatever. So are we going to see something with that? I certainly don't want to see any more governing. Like I'm
I
tired.
do. I
Thaisa
do.
doesn't either.
I want
I'm
scenes on the Senate floor, and if I don't see them, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I'm kind of bored with Thaisa's whole thing. I'm bored with the bad one. I'm intrigued at the idea that if it followed them out there, but now Natalie's dead and Lottie's getting locked up. So I don't know.
I do think that they kind of like they definitely built up some intrigue about the bad one in season two, but it kind of fizzled. Like it's weird how, and I talked about it on the podcast. Like it's weird how like in the wilderness we get all these scenes with the bad one going out and finding the symbol trees, and then they make a map of them, and then like Van goes like, oh look, the symbol trees make a symbol shape on the map, and so there should be one here, and let's go there, and then they find Javi, and then everyone concludes that Tyson knew where Javi was, which like I think is fucking bullshit. I still call bullshit on that. That's not how they got there. She didn't even want to go there. She didn't believe it meant anything. And there was no symbol tree there, or was there? I'm not sure. I'm not
I
clear on
mean,
that. But anyway,
I think we are to assume that there was a symbol tree there. But I am intrigued by the symbol. I'm definitely intrigued by the symbol, and I'm intrigued by the exact thing that you're talking about right now, I
and the
believe.
Isla Sky stuff too.
And the eyeless guy stuff.
Like
Yeah.
that kind of gets dropped.
Yeah, but here's my this is where it gets to my concern and why I'm like not that interested in the Thaisa stuff right now is that I'm getting to the point where I feel like it's like a there's no there.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just don't like it's something creepy and atmospheric, but they don't really know what it means. They don't have a plan for it, and it's just gonna be a letdown.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But the symbols existed before they went there. So are we ever going to find out? Like I was thinking that that episode, that like bonusode that they were going to put out that they never put out or
Hmm.
haven't put out was going to maybe hint at the history of the symbols, but who knows?
I would think that it would, and yeah, maybe we get that after season 3. I'm not sure.
Like maybe
Um,
Walter, why don't we have Walter on the case with these symbols? He's got a lot of research skills.
but like in the adult timeline, you have the bad one, possibly causing the car wreck, and then telling Taisa to go to Van, and then telling Van, this is not where we're supposed to be. And then like they go to Lottie's camp and we never see the bad one again. And like
Yeah.
you also have in the wilderness part, like you have Taisa going to Lottie's like meditation circles with Van, and she's not, the bad one isn't appearing, during for a while.
Yeah.
She does appear
Yeah.
at the end when it comes to the hunt and stuff.
Yeah.
But so I think that's like part of it. Um
So
and,
that's interesting.
and yes, I do think there's no there in the sense that I don't think there's anything supernatural happen. Like I'm firmly in the camp that um anything that appears to be supernatural in the show is, ultimately not going to be, revealed as such. Like, you can definitely sit there and have your arguments about certain scenes that are weird, predictions that Lottie made, or the bear scene, or whatever. But like, I just feel like the show, like in season 2 specifically, like came down pretty hard on the side of, you know, I mean, this to me, the definitive moment was, at the end of the season when Shauna gets up and she's like, she drew the card, and they're standing there and she's like, "You're not serious, right? There's no it. It's just us." And then Lottie says, "Is there a difference?" And so to me, that's like definitive for the way the show is approaching that idea. Because if
Hmm.
Lottie is saying that, that's as far as they're gonna go with that. I think it's like it's a
Hmm.
way that they like, it's a lens or a story through which they interpret like what they're going through, and what it means, but it's not. I don't think the show is ever going to be undeniable in terms of supernatural stuff, like Lost
Yeah.
was,
Okay.
because I was thinking about how Lost, like some of that stuff you can write off at a certain point in the show, but like once they're seeing a smoke monster, once the smoke monster's taken the form of dead people, once you got someone living thousands or hundreds of years, Jacob or Richard, like, yeah, there's some super,
Yeah.
once you have someone miraculously able to walk or whatever, like all those things, healing water, all that stuff, it's like, there's no way to deny that there's supernatural stuff on Lost. I think on Yellowjackets, they're going in the other direction where they're going to allude to it, they're going to use it for atmosphere, but when it comes down to it, is going to be the people.
So
And
are you including like witchcraft in that? I'm serious. This is a serious question. Like are we gonna yeah. In
what
your
do you mean by that?
I well, I'm not going to tell you what I mean by that, but I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking
Okay.
about.
Okay.
So, in this version that you're explaining, because I don't think I disagree, um, in this version that you envision, is there any connection between the the dog head altar and the dramatic reversal of electoral fortune that Thaisa experienced?
So I would say, like, you know, like you can believe it if you want, but probably my default answer to any of those questions
It was the
is there a
phone bank.
difference?
It was the phone bank. It was the phone.
or
Just
or
the polls were wrong.
it was the phone bank.
Nate Silver.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Exactly. Yeah, you promised us that Bathurst would win, and anyway.
First, not the bad. Leave the bad out of this. All right. Well, we'll find out. But I'm gonna go on the record right now saying I don't want any Tyler Durden like footage of us re-seeing the scene with the bear, and we find out it wasn't like that.
No, I mean, I think they all witnessed it. I do think that happened. I just think the show isn't going to, it's just going to be like, oh, that bear was weird. I don't know. Like, I don't think they're
Yeah, I mean,
gonna.
weird things happen within the boundaries of what we call natural.
Yeah, like, technically, that is all physically possible. It isn't what I would
Okay,
call.
you don't know anything about bears. I just gotta say.
It's possible for a bear to submit itself. I'm not saying that it would normally or that it's realistic, but I'm just saying it doesn't require supernatural intervention for that to have happened. That's all I'm
All
saying.
right, all right.
So like it was actually a turning point for me in the show. Like getting to the end of season 2, I reframed the show in my mind because I think at the end of season 1 I was more in the other camp where I felt like there was a supernatural force. I believed in it,
Uh-huh.
and but at the end of season 2, I flipped it around. And so the way I'm approaching the show now, and that I think will lead to, I'm trying to learn from my mistakes of the past. I'm approaching the show as, you know, about the characters, shall we say?
Yeah.
Like that is going to be what makes the show interesting. It's more like Breaking Bad or Sopranos or these shows where it's the main interest. I mean, there's plot intrigue,
Yeah.
but not supernatural. Like to the extent they allude to it, like I think they're never going to be pinned down on it. I think they will
Yeah,
continue
yeah,
to play around with it, but I don't think there's ever going to be a moment where it's like I'm the spirit of the wilderness and I command that
no,
you.
I agree, and that's part of why I don't really care about the Thaisa thing anymore.
Yeah, so I think like it's only interesting insofar as it's a character thing. I mean, to me
Yeah,
that's
but
the.
are they really going to be able to do anything new with it?
Well, I don't know.
I mean, because this
We'll
is
see.
also the problem with these, like, oh, it's about the characters. It's like, yeah, well, I'm bored with this aspect of this character.
Well, that's fair. I mean, we'll see if they find an interesting way to use it, you
Yeah.
know, going
I
forward.
just really like the show. I really like the show. I'm just saying.
What's wrong?
I just want, is that, is there a meaning to the red thing
What red thing?
on the Discord?
Oh, it's just it gives a message that when the recording starts,
Okay, all right. I was just worried it was like like an error.
that's Craig. No, it's not an error. It's
Oh
not
no,
there.
so we're sorry.
Um, yeah, sorry. It sends that automatically
I've
when
just
you
never paid
start.
attention to it before.
Yeah, yeah, no, it should be okay.
Yeah.
Um, sorry, y'all. Uh yeah, so I just think like uh for anyone really, and this was my pitfall with Lost too, which Lost had, like I said, undeniable supernatural elements, but what it became was that like the show didn't care about those things.
Right.
Even though
Right,
they
right.
existed.
Right.
So
Fortunately, this viewer did.
in this case, I think not only does the show not care about those things, but I think it's also always going to be ambiguous slash
Yeah.
like very very debatable whether that stuff exists or not. And to me, the characters are actually interesting enough to carry the show, so
I
I
agree.
don't have a problem with
I
that.
agree.
Actually, like I am happy to watch a show that's about these people because they're a fucking mess, and very entertaining, and like their dynamic is interesting. And so anyway, like that's how I'm thinking about the show going forward. And I just think that's gonna. I advise anyone to try to make that flip because I really think you're gonna be disappointed if you're expecting like concrete
Justin,
stuff about.
everybody has to walk their own path.
I know, but I'm trying to don't end up like me, you know,
No,
like.
no, you have to let the baby touch the smooth.
I want to help, you know, because I've been there. But all right. So yeah, so I did want to talk about some specifics from season two.
Let's hear it.
So I will say one thing I absolutely love in a way that I find inexpressible
Disturbing a little bit.
is, yeah, and disturbing and super disturbing is
He writes sonnets about it.
is this thing that happens in the beginning of season two in the wilderness where Shauna's going out into the meat shed and having these scenes with Jackie where like they're interacting and she's like you know, eventually like applying makeup and like, but she's also getting angry and knocking her ear off, which I think is a
Oh
little
my god.
ridiculous.
No more ear-related diatribes.
But then like putting the ear in her pocket and saving it for later and like chomping on it. I mean, the psychodrama of that is like, to me, one of the most interesting things they've ever done on the show. I love that whole thing. Like,
That
to me, that's so
that fits,
rich.
yeah, it fits with your love of melodrama.
Sure, fair enough.
Like if what's his name made a teenage cannibal movie.
And there's like a, yeah, Douglas Sirk, sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a great thing where Jackie is clearly in Shauna's head. There's like a thing where she tells Shauna something about, I forget, it was something about Jeff and then Shauna's like, I didn't know that. And she's like, yeah, you
Yeah, you did.
did.
Yeah, that's a great moment. Yeah, you did.
You know, and the whole thing where she's like teasing about, oh, what happened to my ear, huh? You almost can't tell, like, what are you really hungry for?
Uh,
What's going on? You know, like it's like Shauna's internal thing is being like represented through this interaction with Jackie. And like to me, like there is something really great about that, and like I don't know, I almost want a whole season of that shit, but anyway,
yeah.
like to me, like, and the outcome of that, where, you know, eventually Tice is like, fuck this, we need to stop this is
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
control, we need to
Yeah.
burn this body so she can't do this shit anymore, it's unhealthy. And then they do, and then this, like, you know, wilderness, I don't think so, random occurrence happens so that her body ends
But
up
the
being
camera, the vantage point.
but the camera, yeah, and hooks it, you know, to perfection, and they're already like starving, and so it's like irresistible, and they have this
Mhm.
feast. That whole thing was like, and then she's like, she wants us to, and it's like such
Yes.
fucking bullshit.
Insane.
Like it's like, give me a break, Shauna, really.
Yeah,
Like, do you
definitely
believe
not.
that? I don't think you do.
Definitely not. Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah. That's how I cooked my Christmas tofurkey. I like put it on a pyre and then let the spirit of the wilderness dump some snow on it. It was perfectly succulent. Yeah, it's, she's ready, like Thais. I noticed this time watching that, everybody thinks, and specifically Lottie thinks, like, okay, slow down, let her keep mourning, like this is all
Yeah,
part of the process. And Thais is like, fuck that. This is gone on, this is psychopathic at this point. Like what we need is to destroy the body.
yeah,
And when it comes time to actually do it, Shauna's ready.
yeah.
And not just because she's hungry.
Yeah, initially she's able to, though there's like an argument about, no, you can't take her jacket or whatever, you know.
They should have taken the
I
jacket.
noticed that
That
they
was
had no
wrong.
argument with Javi on those
Yeah, no
grounds.
kidding.
Um,
They really should have taken that jacket. That was
they
stupid.
absolutely should have taken the
Um,
jacket. It's kind of ridiculous. But I think, yeah, the stylized way they film, like, to me, that whole part of the first part of the season, like, that was great. I loved all that stuff. And then the other thing I want to bring up from that era that was like interesting to me is the like Travis and Lottie thing. Like to me, like there's something like I don't know. I really don't even know what they're going for there. Maybe the point is that they just want to establish like a connection between them because Lottie is going to be heavily involved in Travis's death in the present day, and they want to explain like why would he be calling Lottie, like what, like
yeah.
just to sort of, but like the fact that they do this like sex scene with Natalie where he's like seeing Lottie a bunch of times, like standing over him. Like to me, I to this day I don't really understand what they're trying to communicate with that stuff, but I do find it really interesting and like
Yeah.
I guess part of what I like about it is that it's like a bit opaque what the point is. Because like I said on the podcast and in real life and so on, like there's there's like a version of that scene that's doing something very normal, but that's really not what they're doing. They're not saying Travis is in love with Lottie or anything. That's clearly not true. Nothing else in the story suggests
Right.
that.
Yeah, it's just sort of
Some,
generally speaking to the sway that she has over not just Travis, but
yeah,
including
it's
Travis.
some weird obsession or some weird, I don't know, like, and yeah, she helps him with this panic attack and
Yeah.
and and like and after basically commanding Shauna to slit his throat in the previous season, which is something I was really bothering me when we originally watched this. But since I knew they weren't gonna like make a big deal out of it, I kind of let it go when we watched it this time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I don't know, like the dynamics there, I really enjoyed a lot, and yeah, just I think they got to a place. Okay, so yeah, I guess yeah, maybe just kind of splitting things. Um, so yeah, so we have oh yeah, let's talk about that too. Okay, so yeah, I want to talk about, oh man, so I want to talk about Javi a little bit. So Javi ran at the end of last season, episode before last, actually, during Doom Coming, because Shauna says run with the evil voice or whatever. um and we find out obliquely, but I think this is true, that he was like hiding out in this cave that's like warm for some reason. I don't know, it's like not clear. It's like a reverse cave effect or something. I don't really know what's going on there.
Yeah, we'll just say it's
um,
like geyser adjacent.
yeah, there's something.
Geothermal pockets.
But like he comes back and like yeah, the whole thing about Thaisa knew where Javi was, I think that's bullshit, but I won't belabor that point. um but he tells Coach Ben, like she told me not to come back, and
Yeah.
right, so there's this idea of like either this is what we talked about in the podcast, like there's an animal down there that he like personified and like lived with, like some kind of ancient myth. They're
Yeah.
just like, it's like, yes, you are a wolf or you're a bear or whatever, like we will live together, sweet Javi, you're my baby now. I don't know, some shit like that. Or he was living by himself, but like like imagining someone being there, which many characters have seen things that aren't there.
Yeah.
So it's not out of the question that it was just his way of coping with being alone in that place. you know what Shauna's going through, whatever. Whatever it is, it's left it's left unresolved. because he ends up dying. But I just think that whole, and then the the final thing where, you know, they do the card draw, Natalie gets chosen, and she actually is submitting, originally, but like Travis jumps in and then she runs, and Javi goes and tries to help.
Yeah.
He's like, I know a place, like we'll be safe there, right? It must be that
Yeah.
cave, right?
Yeah.
And then he falls through the ice in that lake, where the moose was earlier, and and then Misty comes up and says, like, you have to let him die or it's going to be you, and she chooses to let him die. I mean, so that's like the second half, where that drama was really good too. I think, like, it asks you to accept that this character that to a degree you like and sympathize with does this really horrible thing, um that, like, in normal moral terms should be pretty unforgivable.
Yeah.
It's like, really, like, okay. And then, and then the fact that she comes back and, you know says, like, the it all to try, happens so fast. The wilderness chose. And it's like, and then when she talks to Coach Ben, it's clear that she didn't even believe that. She's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm actually worse than they are.
Yeah.
I did this thing, and like I don't deserve to be like somehow lifted above them or separated from them or whatever.
Yeah.
But then she gets made leader and she fucking loves it. It's like such a wild ride there,
Yeah.
with Natalie at the end. Like, to me, that's great stuff. And
It is. It
I
is.
just want to,
No, it is, and it's kind of like a reminder that these are fundamentally still teenage girls,
yeah,
or teenagers in general.
yeah,
So this idea that they would go through those emotions in a situation like this, which is crazy,
yeah,
um, is, I guess sort of developmentally appropriate, if you can say that, in such a wild
yeah.
context.
As much as anything can be, I guess. Yeah,
But
yeah,
like the desire for social clout, and power, even in these like grim and disturbing this grim and disturbing situation.
yeah.
Anyhow.
But I'll tell you what, it makes me wonder, and like, okay, there's a part of this where I understand how TV's made, all right? Like, I know that, like, that thing that happened is not something that they had planned when the show started. So I'm not, whatever. I'm not trying to be unrealistic. I get that that's at least part of it, right? But I do feel like there's some unanswered questions there. Like, did Travis ever find out what happened there? So I was thinking about how she told. There's basically two people who know what happened besides Natalie herself, and that's Misty, who was there and suggested it.
Yeah.
So Misty can't be like exposing Natalie without exposing herself. Never mind the fact
Right.
that it's clear from the present day that she's very loyal to Natalie.
Yeah.
She does not think Natalie's a bad person.
Right.
And like, just objectively, like, is Natalie worse than Misty? Like, I don't know. That's very debatable. But you know,
Yeah.
so like I don't think Misty has an incentive to like expose her,
Right.
so it just doesn't seem likely that that is a thing. And then the other person who knows about it is Coach Ben. because she basically tells him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that in terms of season three, like that's something I'm wondering. Like, will that be revealed? Did Travis ever learn that this happened? And did he somehow allow himself to come to terms with it, or to whatever extent he came to terms with anything? Because obviously, like when they came back, like the whole point of their adult plot is like they were a mess when they came back. And they were in this like
But
doom
why would
spiral.
Coach Ben tell him?
There's no reason to. I'm just saying, like,
Because I think
that's
if I'm Coach Ben, I'm just spending the rest of my existence, whatever that is, just trying to avoid all of them.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I don't think it's gonna happen. I was just thinking about like what are the possible
Yeah.
avenues where it could happen, and like that's all. I think that's all there is. So I suspect that Travis is never gonna find out, which I think is kind of crazy. And I sort of wanted Natalie to be more explicit about that, because I think like
I
there
mean, I think
were.
if he finds out, it's going to be because Natalie confesses
Yeah,
at
exactly.
some
That's
point,
that's the third possibility.
perhaps in adulthood.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like that's the uh that's something I just sort of I wish was like a little clearer. But like I said, I don't think they had a choice. That is something that happens quite late in season two, and they can't give away the game too early, you know. But I do feel like the implication of where it goes in the adult timeline with Lisa and stuff. I mean, they made it explicit with, so it's not even an implication. I feel like they made it pretty clear that when she jumps in, it's at least partially like a kind of atonement
Oh,
for what
yeah.
happened with
Yeah,
Javi.
yes, exactly.
Like a way to, and like that whole forgiveness thing, seemed
Yeah.
like that was
It's,
all obliquely referencing that idea.
it's a nice idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. She saves her as, yeah,
Yeah.
sort of punishment or atonement, however you want to think of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really touching. It's really well done.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that arc was well done, but that is an example of a thing where because they had to spend time on that, and we got two new Yellowjackets, like that does necessarily like remove some time from
Hmm.
the others.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so the other thing I wanted to talk about was Coach Ben's plot. So
Woof.
like he spends like the majority of the season in this like weird hallucinatory state where he's imagining first he's imagining a scene that I think really happened with his boyfriend Paul that he talked about the end of season one. So they had established that. And but then it like progresses past that, and then they're in the cat like pretty soon like the his present circumstance like intrudes,
Yeah.
and it's like his mind forces him out of that world, and he comes out into the world, and then he tries to kill himself. He goes to the ledge where they dump the shit where Crystal fell, and Misty comes in to talk him down. That's where we get the
High
high
protein,
calorie
high
butt
carb.
meat
Yeah.
line, and she uses like everything she could think of to try to talk him down.
Yeah, that's an intense scene.
It is, yeah, and like yeah, just in terms of like what comes after that, it's interesting that obviously it's not Misty's fault that he's gonna burn the cabin later, but like it's sort of like if she hadn't stepped in, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it's interesting also because like I was thinking about how the whole like Misty has a crush on Coach Ben thing like is pretty dropped in see, but I think there's a logic to it because he tells her that he's gay at the end of season one. And I do think a core thing we talked about on the podcast like quite a lot. I think a core thing about Misty, like sure she's capable of delusion, but I do think she's pragmatic at her core, and I think once it's like that clear that like not all like there's just no world in which this would ever be a thing that it's like, okay,
Yeah.
like I'll move on now. I'll not let that be, something I continue to lie to myself about.
Yeah.
So I sort of don't mind it on that level. That's not just for the fact that, there was a lot of that in season one, so we don't want to just keep going to that well again. But it makes sense, I think. So anyway, um, but yeah, the fact that she steps in and like talks him off the ledge, literally,
Yeah.
is kind of interesting. And yeah, that was a good scene. And then that like paves the way for he goes in and looks at the map and he finds Javi's cave and he crawls down there and that leads to him making the offer to Natalie to like come with them, like you're not like them, you're
Mhm.
whatever, we can survive down there, and then when he comes back for matches because he can't light a fire in the cave, that's when he sees Natalie being crowned, the antler queen, and everybody like lining up to like kiss the ring and do their obeisance to
Yeah.
to the new
It's not a
leader.
great coincidence of timing.
It's like he's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, maybe she's right. Maybe she is worse than they are. And fuck it, let's burn them all. And he not only burns the cabin, but he blocks the door.
Yeah.
Which like that takes things to another level to me. Like, because it's bad enough to burn but it's like blocking the door means he wanted to kill them all.
Yeah.
And like, for whatever their transgressions were, I don't do they is it really justified to murder them all, Coachman? I'm not sure about that. Like that's
Yeah, I mean, what is he murdering them all for? Like, why is murdering them all better than like simply leaving and letting them continue to do violence unto one another?
yeah,
Like the worst they can do is kill each other.
yeah,
So why is killing them all better? And it
yeah.
doesn't, I mean, I don't, yeah, I guess it's sort of like I have to kill them or they're gonna kill me, but they don't actually show him saying or thinking that.
No, they really don't. I mean, that's the
Um,
weird thing. It's like those scenes are mostly dialogue. Like the only thing we really see is like he tries to get Natalie to come with him.
yeah.
That's it. Like picking up on that like sort of friendship thing they have from season one, which is probably ruptured at this point. And I think like going forward, if we're talking season three, he told Natalie where he was,
Right.
and that's a shelter. And I don't think he's gonna make it out. So anyway, that's something I think
Yeah.
is like a very clear path they have
Yeah.
available to them for season three, and I do expect there to be some serious conflict on that front.
Yeah.
Um, like the normal thing would be it ends with them eating Ben, but I think at the very least, like they have to try to get into that place because she
They need a
already
shelter.
yeah, like
Yeah.
she already heard about it from Javi, then she hears about it from she knows there's a
Yeah.
place. And so it's like she's a leader. If she doesn't suggest that, it's
Yeah.
gonna be weird.
So I'm envisioning though a rather large cave system with multiple ins and outs. And so, because otherwise, like, they can't just go to the same, you know, 600 square foot hidey hole.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we're gonna have a cave chase. So we're gonna have like competing cave stuff. I don't know. There's something there, I think, because they have to have shelter somewhere.
Yeah.
So either they're gonna like try to build it themselves or they're gonna go to some naturally occurring place. I doubt there's gonna be another cabin. That seems like too much. So
Yeah, if there's another cabin, they should have already found it in
yeah,
all these
exactly.
hunting, mapping, hobby search outings.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I
Okay.
suppose they could go back to the plane.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that is technically true. Okay. So all right, so what else do I want to talk about? So Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to even approach this. So I want to talk about Van. Like, and I think for Van, I have to do both timelines because there's stuff going on in both that's like kind of weird. So, in the wilderness timeline, we have we have Van. You know, they showed her actually. That thing at the end of season one is Lottie, Van, and Misty. And I think in retrospect, like it shouldn't have been Misty, but I think if it is Misty, it's Misty playing along. Like I don't think Misty ever really believed in the supernatural stuff. And I think this season made that clear
Yeah.
by the way she talks to Lottie at the end. I want to
I
talk
think
about
she
that.
believes in being a part of a group and
Yeah.
having, you know, yeah.
And survival.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't think that she really believes in a supernatural wilderness god or whatever. So
No.
but Van I think did, right? She said she had this vision
Yeah.
at the end of season one, when after the wolf attack and that whole thing.
Hmm.
And then we come into season two, and Lottie's having these like meditation circles where they're like
Hmm.
listening to the wind and shit. And it's like, and Thaisa gets some benefit from this, like the bad one stops appearing, right? She goes along because Van goes.
Yeah, and when she and Shauna get lost in the
That's what they do.
snowstorm, that's what they do.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I would also say that is sort of a meditation technique as much as anything. And so,
Yeah,
more so than than something
100%.
supernatural. So I don't find anything that compelling that's what they use. That's what Thaisa uses to find the cabin. Like
I agree completely.
shutting out fear, focusing your
Yeah,
senses.
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, 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 totally, and totally. I think that's the way to think about it. Um, but then at a certain point, um, and I don't even remember like what the catalyst is for this. Because you had that thing that with the map and they find Javi and stuff like I don't want to dwell on that too much, but like that's the thing that happens. But at a certain point, she has this scene with Thaisa where she's like, you know, I used to think that like this all meant something and there was this like larger force or whatever, but like I don't really believe that
Right,
anymore. I
right.
don't feel that anymore, you know. And then she when the thing with Javi happens, she's the one who steps up and goes, "The wilderness chose," right? Which like really bothered me at the time, but I think now I'm reading it as, you know, she's playing along. Like I don't think she even believes that in that
Yeah.
moment. I think it's like this is the thing we're supposed to say so we can eat,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
So
And
you're not feel like you just killed a child to eat him.
yeah, and
Yeah.
she has this scene with Travis where she's like, we're alive and we shouldn't feel guilty about that, and like that's what
Right.
matters. Like we're doing what it takes, and like
Right.
and no mysticism at all.
Yeah.
It's pure like we're doing what it takes to like get through this. And so my reading on that is that like she just flipped to the other side, more in like the Misty camp of just like this is what we got to do. So like if like the wilderness chose is the way we get to eat tonight, then the wilderness chose.
Right.
Fine, I don't care. It's
Right.
not my thing. So, I think there's this idea that they kind of talk about where it's like that experience of being out there is like she was broken by it or something. Like it destroyed her spirit or her belief in like things having meaning.
Right.
Which is a real downer. I mean, that goes back to your like the season is heavier,
Yeah.
because in the present day, she's running this video store, which, and when we see her interacting, like it seems like, goes along with the stuff from the past. She's like recounting movies to them. Like that's part of the thing they
Yeah.
talk about, and she's all about those like pop culture references and stuff. Like, and it seems like, oh, it's like an ideal dream job basically for someone like that.
Yeah.
This is what you want to do. But then like then you learn that it's not financially working at all, and she's got cancer, and so she's still like just like muddling through, I guess. And she reluctantly goes along with Thaisa to Lottie's camp. She didn't want to go.
Yeah,
She
she
didn't want to
wasn't gonna
go
get out of the
in.
car. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then she goes in, and they have their let's all pick an
Well,
activity.
before that, she's immediately enraptured.
Yeah. Yeah. And her thing with Lottie, I feel like is underplayed a bit. Like I kind of wish they told us more about that, because we do get that moment, but I feel like in the subsequent episodes, like
Yeah.
there's no real follow-up.
But she's probably I feel like she's gonna be going to see Lottie at the institution quite a bit next season.
That's interesting. I think that's possible. I mean, especially if the cancer goes away, which I think is possible. Obviously, if she's going to stay on the show, unless it's a real compressed timeline, like at some point they have to deal with that. So that could definitely be a catalyst for a shift. But so yeah, she's transfixed. But then, like when they go to do their activities, they all choose an activity, right?
Oh, right.
And her thing is like, well, I got forage, so I went to my car and I got a tequila bottle and I'm just sitting here drinking it. That's what she fucking does,
Yeah.
right? So it's like clearly she's not buying in too much,
Right.
right? Like she's treating it like this is some bullshit and I'm just gonna do what I want,
Yeah.
you know? And eventually like Tice joins her, and then we have the end game for the season where Lottie decides that, oh, we brought it back with us, and so it's hard for me to make any sense of this line of reasoning. But anyway, so we should like do another ritual sacrifice like we did in the wilderness, because like I don't know why, like it's gonna help somehow.
Last time it demanded blood,
Yeah,
so we need to give it
it
blood
wants it
this
again,
time.
or
Yeah.
something. I want to talk about Lottie more, but on that front, but just to keep the focus on Van, um, you know, uh, the rest of them like agree after this. Like Shauna kind of stalls. The rest of them agree that like, oh man, we gotta call someone in and take Lottie away. She's lost it again. Seemed like she was stable before, but like, oh shit. So they do it, right? But then Van convinces uh Thaisa to call them off. She's like, it's our responsibility. Like, we're the reason she's like this. I think that's questionable, but anyway, she feels like they should handle it themselves. That's what she says.
Yeah.
And then when we get to the circle and they're doing the cards, you know, and like they're like shuffling and stuff, at a certain point, she's like, that's enough. Like,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
let's
she
fucking
wants to
draw.
yeah,
I'm
she
ready.
yeah, because once you start, you can't stop. That's what we find out. So she is absolutely yeah, she wants this hunt.
And like Thaisa makes this half-hearted like, um, hey Lottie, no, really, like, can we talk this over? Like,
Yeah,
well, we don't have to do this, blah blah blah. And then when Van, she's like, oh, is this Van? Is this what you wanted?
right.
Which I feel like is basically implying that, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what she wanted.
absolutely. Absolutely, that's what that
She
means.
called them off so they could do this crazy
That's my thing.
fucking.
Why did she want this?
Yeah. So like I mean, I don't have a specific explanation other than it's part of this like doom arc where,
Yeah.
it's like, well, I don't, everything else is a disaster. in my life and I don't care about anything. So like maybe a ritual sacrifice like we did back in the wilderness will somehow like help or snap me out of it, or at the very least I'll die and this will be over. I don't know, like
Yeah.
that's what it feels like to me, but they don't say. They don't say specifically. But I just find that whole thing like that whole arc like confusing and but also interesting. so I had to bring
Yeah.
it up because like the introduction of adult Van is a big part of season 2.
Yeah.
So like it's like what the fuck, and it's a pivotal part of what happens at the end, in the adult timeline, so like I'm curious what they're gonna do with
Yeah,
that going
same,
forward.
same. I mean, I hope that I hope that they deal with the fallout of this episode in a satisfying way.
Yeah.
Eh,
I
Yeah,
do too.
we'll see.
I
It
do
it could
too.
be a 6 months later kind of
It
situation.
definitely could be that. Yeah, if they want to just kind of
Yeah.
skip past all that business. Okay. So now uh
How many more bullet points do you have on
I'm
this?
sorry. I'm
Just out of
sorry.
curiosity.
There's just some things.
Uh-huh.
There's just some things
Uh-huh.
I feel like I need to bring up. So I also want to talk about Lottie a little bit. So okay, we definitely flipped the script in season 2, right? It shows Lottie like full of doubt. You know,
Yeah.
we have this hunting competition,
Yeah.
where it's clear like she's like, yeah, I don't really think I have
She doesn't
magic
have a clue.
powers to
Yeah.
make like animals appear or whatever. And then we have this thing where, she's like, um so like in the fallout from the Shauna's baby thing, we have she's just like recovering from severe injuries
Yeah.
upstairs in the attic basically the whole end of the season,
Yeah.
and not participating in any of it didn't have anything to do with the card idea,
Yep.
didn't have anything to do with the selection of hobby and like whether that was right or not, like
Yeah.
if anything she's objecting to it,
Yeah.
and expressing like I used to think that the wilderness wanted what was best for us, but now I'm not so sure. And like that's an interesting place to get to in
It's very
parallel
interesting.
with
Yeah.
the place she is as an adult,
Yeah.
where like I was thinking about this like really hard, probably too hard, and I was thinking like, so like because they all have these lines about,
Mhm.
oh Lottie, I thought you were in a mental institution, I thought you were
Yeah.
whatever. Multiple characters say
Yeah, then
this.
she says that was 10 years ago
Yeah,
or something.
which means that she lived functionally for like 10 years. And it's like, it kind of seems like now,
And she established this whole business,
it,
this whole commune where she is
yeah,
really apparently helping
yeah.
people.
And it kind of seemed like having the other Yellowjackets come back like triggers her
Yeah.
to spiral into a breakdown again,
Yeah.
which is like, well, that's kind of fucked up. Like I was thinking about it, like, wait a minute. Now, I think you could argue that it really all started when Travis called. Of course, that counts because that is 100% part of it. But we see in the flashback of what happened to Travis that she had a hallucination of Laura Lee at the site
Yeah.
where Travis died.
Yeah.
And presumably, like, that was one of her first in a long time. And, like, that leads her to go back to therapy. Um,
Oh boy.
or pretend like she's going back to therapy, or being unaware that she's hallucinating going back to therapy, which is kind of wild.
Mhm.
um
It is wild.
and then she gets to a place where she says to the therapist like, I'm not afraid that it's all in my head, I'm
I'm afraid it
afraid
isn't.
that it's real,
Yeah.
that there
Because
really
it never
is
has.
this like
Yeah.
it, and it wants blood and all that. and then and then we learn that, well, and then like the whole thing flips, and it's like, what is a hunt with no violence ever feed anyone?
Yeah, that's a
And
good
it's like
one.
her brain turns on her,
Yeah.
and it's like no therapy for you. Now you need to like go back to that mode, which like we haven't even seen her be in the wilderness time, because she wasn't doing that. The doom coming thing is the closest that
Mhm.
we've even seen to that, but she
Mhm.
specifically like doesn't participate and abdicates leadership at the end,
That's
you
true.
know so it's like it's weird to me that then she turns back to this, and
Yeah, we still have a long way to go.
that we have, yeah, it's true. And so anyway, yeah, like teenage Lottie's thing is still like an open book. I don't really know like what's gonna happen there,
Yeah.
because there's clearly a path that we haven't seen, that like seems like it has some significant developments in it. But then we have the ultimate coda, double coda of, it's just us, right? Is there a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
difference, combined with the wilderness chose, it is pleased. And it's like I I don't know what the fuck to think.
Yeah.
Like I thought Van's arc was confusing, but I think Lottie's arc is actually more confusing, because it's really going back and forth
Yeah,
between,
you harped on that a lot the first time around.
and I must harp on it
Yeah,
again,
clearly.
because I just think it's like unclear what she thinks. Because it's
Yeah.
like in one moment it seems like she's all in, and in another moment she's like, th- you know,
Well, I think
it's
that
not real, and also there's no difference.
I'm not going to argue your broader point, but I think the mental state that she's in when she says the wilderness is pleased at the end, that doesn't count. That, she's just seen this crazy thing with Natalie dying and the outcome, her acolyte stumbling upon this scene, seeing the Callie, her, having that response
Hmm.
to her daughter, who's close in age to the age that they were when they were in the woods. I think she kind of loses it. um so I don't think that you should try to fold into a master explanation of her thought process that last scene.
Yeah,
I think that's her like triggered back to, you know, peak Lottie
some
on the
earlier
yeah,
thing.
in the
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. It's just interesting that like I feel like the show hasn't really shown us that version of Lottie yet. So
Yeah.
it's something that I expected after season one to be her default mode, and she does kind of get there in the adult timeline, but in the teenage timeline, not
Yeah, she
really.
she takes several steps back.
Yeah,
She hasn't had a win for a while.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's interesting. Okay. And then one more thing, and this will be brief, I promise. But like I just have to say it, because one big thing this season does is close the book on Shauna's pregnancy in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And I think that is the worst episode of the season. And really it's not even, a lot of that episode is actually fine. When we watch it again, it's less of an episode than I remembered, but I still think it's too long for what they do with it, which is ask us to buy into a whole scenario that's
Yeah,
complete bullshit.
I agree.
And I also don't I also cannot bring myself to buy in. Like I get it on a level, but I cannot bring myself to buy into like when she beats the shit out of Lottie. Like, it doesn't help that she's screaming, "You ate my baby." Like, because like I'm like, oh God, really? Like that's what we're leaning on, like a part of this like hallucination dream thing that was bullshit. And like I feel like if they were gonna build up to that, I feel like there should have been something I feel like there should have been something, some more concrete, like really believable, like conflict between, because there is conflict revolving around a baby between Lottie and Shauna, but it's just that she thinks Lottie's kind of being creepy about it. That's it. To me, that's like way too much violence for that. If she did something else, something more extreme, I just feel like that would have worked better for me, because it's like it's I get why they want to go there, and it plays a pivotal role in the way the drama plays out at the end of the season. But like it just doesn't work for me. Like, I
Yeah.
just can't bring myself to believe that, like, Shauna's in this place where she's screaming about "you ate my baby," and like doing such injury to like she can barely pee, she can barely get up off the ground. I mean, it's like severe. So
Yeah.
anyway, like that's just a turn in the middle of the season that I don't like, and it still didn't work for me this time. And it's built on that whole episode or that whole part of that episode that bothered me. So anyway, like
Yeah.
I'm glad it's over.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try to convince you to like that, but I guess I would just say that, and I'm not saying that I even like it, but it's worth remembering that they are teenagers. And so acting in ways that seem irrational to us as adults is not that unusual.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And that, it's all this pent up everything. If any single one of them had the opportunity or the provocation, I feel like any of them are just like this close to being in a mental state where they could just beat the shit out of somebody who was like not fighting back and not reacting in any way.
Yeah, sure, sure.
It's like an extremely stressful experience that they're all living through, and then plus she has also dealt with this pregnancy and everything that has come along with it. She's got all this hormonal stuff going on, being immediately postpartum. um yeah.
I guess I just wish there was more like of a buildup of like the violence like
Yeah.
building up. I just feel like they didn't do a good job of that. So like
Yeah,
just
fine.
just for contrast, because like scenes like that I've seen many times. I'm thinking about, you know, uh, sorry, this is my go-to, y'all. I'm thinking about Lost, right? So like there's several scenes in Lost along those lines, but like one that comes to mind um is like Said and Ben, you know, like he goes in there and like he's interrogating Ben, and like um you know like he's talking to, he's Henry Gale at the time, he's telling this lie about how he got there, and like his wife and stuff, and like eventually like Said goes off on him because he's like, you would remember everything about this if it really happened to you, because he's just gone through this thing with Shannon, right? So there, to me, it's a similar dynamic, but it made sense. Not only the fact that, I mean, Saeed is a torturer in his, previous life, and there's a specific tragedy. It's shown to be leading to aggression before that, and then he's presented with this person, and then we get this outburst. That's the thing that just didn't happen here, and so that's just for an example of like a version of that I can get on board with, where I'm feeling the anger and the reason, I just think they didn't like delve into that in the right way, because I think, yeah, on the surface it makes sense. I just think they didn't show it in a way that would allow me to buy
Yeah.
into it.
Okay.
So anyway, that's a disappointment I have, but also I'm glad it's over. So at the very least, in season 3, we don't have to deal with that shit.
There you go.
So that's an upside for sure.
Yeah.
Um uh
There you go.
uh
Look at that optimism.
Same thing with like the Adam Martin and Jessica Roberts. I mean, it's really mostly about Adam Martin, but Jessica Roberts gets wrapped up in this. It's like I'm not totally pleased with the way those plots developed, but I am glad they're over. you know,
There you go.
I'm glad that we can like move on at least. So like, that's an upside, I guess, to
Yeah.
a thing that you know uh didn't fully work for me, I guess.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, I wanted uh something else, I guess, or I didn't want to deal with it, but it's like also like I think they had no choice. They were boxed in, you know. But it's a hard thing to sit through. Um so anyway, I felt like if I talk about season two and I don't mention that, I I'm missing something.
Yeah, sure.
Um, I won't say too much about it, but I think the Misty Walter stuff was fun and like pretty successful
Definitely.
overall. And I also liked Misty's teenage stuff with Crystal forming this bond, admitting to her that she destroyed the
Yeah.
emergency transmitter, and that leading to this like pseudo murder slash death culpability.
Yeah.
Also, the mystery of what happened to Crystal's body is still a thing. So perhaps in season three, you know, there'll be a thing about that. I don't know. I just want to throw it out there.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, obviously Natalie dies, so that's a big turning point. We get a big death scene. That's pretty significant. Obviously, there's going to be some consequence of that going forward. I'm curious about how they're going to carry forward with that in the adult timeline. And also in the teenage timeline, how Antler Queen Natalie is going to be, because I really don't know. That is new territory. There were some vague allusions earlier in the show that like could be interpreted as talking about that, but
Yeah.
we really know nothing about it at
Yeah.
this point. So I think that's like something to look forward to. Like what, because I don't even have a vision for what that's going to be like, because she's such a different person from Lottie. Like I just can't imagine that she's going to be a leader like Lottie would have been, you know.
Yeah, certainly not.
So yeah, like the dynamic has to change. And so anyway, that's another thing that we may or may not get something about.
Yeah, well, we'll have to,
I
right?
mean, yeah, yeah, I shouldn't say we may or may
We'll
not.
see how far we
We'll
go.
get something
But
about
yeah,
it,
they're
but yeah.
very, very different
Yeah.
characters.
Oh, and like, will we get Pig Girl in season three? You know, are they gonna address that? Actually, I want to say a little thing about that. Sorry, I just got to. So I was watching this video, right? And they were talking about the Pig Girl thing, and like there's people out there. I hate having to do this, but like I just feel like this is my platform to complain. So like there's there's people out there who think like Pit Girl isn't necessarily the one they were eating afterwards, right? So like they're trying to make it where like Pit Girl could be one of the survivors. Like that's that like
This
that,
doesn't make any sense. I
yeah,
mean, why?
couldn't agree more. So like I just want to say to any of y'all out there who think Pit Girl is someone who survived, um I don't deny that like they don't like show Pit Girl being pulled from the pit and literally like put on the thing and they eat. Like we don't see that directly on screen, okay? But like filmmaking language implies that that's what happened.
Yeah, I
All
don't find that worth discussion. Like those people are just they don't know how TV works. I mean, I understand this game that people like to play of like, you're not gonna fool me. I'm not gonna
yeah,
believe you're really dead.
yeah.
But
That's
come
what they
on.
always want to question everything because they want to catch it when they try to like trick us, right? So I'm saying that like if they wanted to, like technically if you look at the shots, it's possible. They could pull some bullshit, but you'll never get me to believe that that's what they intended when they filmed that thing. 100% the point of that was that they ate the pickerel afterwards, right? Like that's so clear to me. It's like, so Pit Girl has to be someone who did not survive the wilderness.
Right.
I'm just planting my flag in the ground on that. I just wanted to talk about that for anyone. And second point along those lines is the postcard thing is over, y'all. Get over it. Get
Oh
over it. They
God.
explain the postcards, and that's it. Shauna doesn't object when Natalie says, "What? Jeff sent the postcards?" If she didn't know that Jeff sent the postcards, then why wouldn't she say anything in that moment? Thank you, good night.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other thing is Adam Martin. Like, people are still obsessed about Adam Martin. It's like, let it go, y'all. He was just who he appeared to be. Like, that's it. Of course they were teasing us. Of course they wanted us to think he was Javi. He's
Yeah.
obviously not Javi. We saw what happened to Javi in season 2. So get over it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. People will just hold on to anything. I feel like they're trying to turn it into a show that it isn't. And I think that's just gonna lead to them being disappointed. And I'm trying not to be that person.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to throw those things out as things I think they will not talk about in season 3, except perhaps to reference what we all know the answers were.
Right.
So anyway, um, I think that's it. I think that's it for me.
Okay. Well,
Um,
there you have it, folks.
so yeah, any other bits or bobs or
No.
predictions or
No. No.
no?
No.
All right then.
I just
So
Yeah, I'm excited for the new season. I hope it doesn't wildly disappoint. You just never know. And, I would encourage people to let go of stupid theories that are only gonna disappoint you so that Justin doesn't have to harp on them anymore.
I just, it's like
No, I just let it go. You just gotta let it go. Bless their little hearts. They want to hold on to these ridiculous ideas. That's their journey.
it's just like I used to be just like you.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't I know
Yeah,
where
you
that road
can't.
leads.
Yeah, but that we don't. That's their journey. It doesn't have to be ours.
Fair enough, fair enough. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's why I feel compelled to say
yeah.
something about it.
No, I mean, yeah, as I said earlier, there are some things that I am interested in. There are some things that I'm less interested in, and there are some things, as always, that I'm prepared to be disappointed about.
Middlingly interested in it.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. We'll see. We'll see where they go.
I just want to one quick thing is to reiterate my prediction from the last podcast, which is that I do think because they leave Matt as an asset at the end of season 2, I think there's gonna come a point where like I don't know what the plot's gonna be because it's not really obvious. Like I think season 1 had this like big cliffhanger type ending, whereas like season 2 is more closed off, so I think they're open to go in another direction. So I don't know what that's going to be. But let's just say every season so far, at some point, there's something illegal going on. So I suspect that will be true in season 3. And so I suspect at some point they're going to need to like call in a favor. And I think having a cop that's on their side, has like obvious
You mean a
value.
cop they can blackmail?
Yeah. A cop, yeah, I should.
I'd hardly describe him as being on their
He's
side.
not on their side by choice, but I just mean like someone who has been aligned with them by force, which makes him a risk. To be fair, like
Yeah, that's the thing. He's a
you
risk.
got to watch out for that. He could absolutely betray them if he thinks he can get away with it. So
Yeah,
that's also like a potential source of something or other.
yeah,
And we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I think that's it for me. So if you're ready to close it down, I
yeah.
guess we'll see you when season 3 starts.
That's right.
Get that hype train toot toot toot.
That's right.
And
Toot toot toot.
until next
And
time,
buzz buzz
buzz buzz
buzz.
buzz, y'all.